Hi everyone, thanks for the introduction, Amy. My name is Kimberly Quick and I'm a policy associate at the Century Foundation. And I'm going to be talking about the second report that came out with Amy's, entitled A New Wave of School Integration. As Amy's work highlights and as she discussed earlier, there are so many benefits to integration by both race and class, but we know that our schools remain highly segregated due to a number of factors: discriminatory housing policies, rising levels of concentrated poverty, unfavorable legal rulings and interpretations of equal protection that have limited the reach of effective or some effective racial desegregation plans. In our report, Hallie Potter and I highlight the work of school districts and charter schools around the country that are doing what they can to combat these patterns of segregation by using and promoting socioeconomic integration strategies. So our research identified a total of 91 school districts and charter networks located across the country that use socioeconomic status as a factor in student assignment. The Century Foundation, when they first began supporting research on socioeconomic school integration in 1996, it could only find, or Rick Kallenberg, our colleague, could only find 2 districts that use socioeconomic integration strategies. In 2007, when the Century Foundation began to create a longer inventory of class-conscious districts, researchers identified about 40 districts that use student socioeconomic status in assignment processes. 9 years later, we found that figure is more than doubled. So there is reason to be encouraged. Within those 91 school districts and charter networks, 83 are districts and 8 are charters. The 91 school districts and charter networks are located in 32 different states. The states with the greatest number of districts and charters are California, Florida, Iowa, New York, Minnesota, and North Carolina. And about 4 million students are living in districts that use socioeconomic integration strategies. That's about 8% of all students nationwide. So lots of room for growth, but 8% is much larger, as I said earlier, than it has been in the past. The majority of districts and charters on the list have racially and socioeconomically diverse enrollments. All but 10 districts and charter schools on the list have no single racial or ethnic group that comprises over 70% of or more of the student body, and all but 17 of the districts and charter networks have rates of free and reduced price eligibility that are under 70% as well. Okay. The majority of the integration strategies that we observed fall into 5 categories. The first and most popular with 38 school districts is changing attendance zone boundaries to better create socioeconomic balance. The second is magnet school admissions that establish schools with unique pedagogies that should draw students from across geographic areas. There are also transfer policies that preference transfer applications that would better balance school. District-wide controlled choice policies whereby all families within a district rank their choices of schools from across the district, and students are assigned to schools according to an algorithm that takes into account socioeconomic status. And charter school admissions policies that oftentimes use a weighted lottery or reserve seats for low-income students to ensure a certain amount of socioeconomic diversity. And many of the districts on our list use a combination of these methods and have found that to be highly effective. So the true story of our report is really about momentum, right? The growth of these programs that we've seen in red states and blue states, in urban centers and rural centers, in college towns and various different places. The districts vary in geographic size, they vary in population density, so we're really encouraged by that. And we're also encouraged, as Secretary John King said earlier, or spoke about earlier, about some of the increased leadership around school integration that's been taking place recently, namely the President's budget proposal, Stronger Together. The efforts of the districts and charters that we identified should provide hope in continuing the push for integration and demonstrating a variety of pathways for policymakers, education leaders, and community members who want to advance equity. So I am open to any questions anyone might have. Nope, right here.
Yes, Lawrence Bussey, Fairfax County Public Schools. One of the issues we're seeing is with respect to pupil assignment is many of the schools that are heavily minority or where there's very high school poverty, many of these schools are under capacity. And in other areas where there's new construction, new housing, many of these schools are not only packed, but they're over-enrolled. So one of the issues with respect to reducing school poverty is to look at those schools that are under capacity and those that are over capacity, and to look at where you place these portables, because if you continue to place portables in schools that are over capacity, it's going to exacerbate the racial isolation. So I think that's one area. Also, I'd like to note we should be added to the 91 schools, because in Fairfax County we've been looking at socioeconomic issues and pupils in terms of boundaries for probably the last 10 years. So if you would do that, I would certainly appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for that information. We always are very excited to learn about new schools to be added to the list. So the 91 schools were schools that we collected in February, and we found out about a couple of different places around the country through wonderful information and from people reaching out to us that should be added to the list. So that number is actually a little higher now. With regard to the first part of your question, I think that's a really astute observation. One thing that I think you made a valid point. The only thing I would add to your comments is the importance of integration being a two-way street, right? So we want schools in all neighborhoods to be integrated. We don't want the burden to be on just poor or minority students moving to one side or just white students moving to the other side, right? We really want to make sure that students are, that all students and families are participating in that process. Yes, right here in the front.
Yes, thank you. Natalie Panedo. I'm originally from Alexandria, Virginia, and a mother of two, 6 and 8 years old. So I'm very concerned about education for the children, because the schools now over the capacity. And the plan from the school board, what we are looking is for like a long-term plan for 10 years, looking money, building schools, and so on. In 10 years, I will be concerned about university for my children. I need a short-term solution to find what is the best for the children now. For example, I'm originally from Ukraine, and I used to attend the school where we had 2 shifts. The second shift started at 1, and this way we use the building smart way. The same ways happen in Europe. Been living in Central America, they're doing this too, in Central America and Latin America. So I don't see why we cannot do it. Thank you.
I think, so first of all, the topics you're talking about aren't necessarily covered by our research. But of course, at the Century Foundation, we're really open to finding ways to increase, efficiency in education and quality of education on a number of different fronts. But I'm sorry, I can't answer your question more fully. I saw your hand.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Carl Alexander. I'm from Baltimore City, right up the road. And in Baltimore, the city-county divide is an almost impenetrable barrier to moving children to achieve greater diversity. In the panel that follows, you'll be hearing from our senator, one of our state senators, Bill Ferguson, who's trying to make the divide somewhat more permeable. But I had the opportunity to visit Louisville, Kentucky just last week, and I came away with an appreciation of the potential that a metropolitan school district or a consolidated school district that absorbs the central city and surrounding counties for achieving these kinds of goals. And what I'm wondering is, do you know of any places throughout the country that are seriously entertaining a move toward a consolidated school district away from one that's bounded by the traditional political boundaries?
I'm trying to think currently, and I wish I could give you some more specific examples, but some of the schools in our list are using inter-district programs. And I'm not sure if they are, I don't think that they are consolidated school districts in the same way that Louisville is. But we know that the majority of segregation is interdistrict, right? Is between districts, not within school districts. And so interdistrict policies are really great methods if your school district has a particularly high concentration of poverty throughout the school district, or a high concentration or high racial isolation within that school district.
Yeah, the Hartford, Connecticut, my name is Michael Allen. Hartford, Connecticut, John Ritter, they've had a very successful inter-district, Hartford, Connecticut inter-district program. The reality is, we'll be doing work down in Charlotte soon and in Wake County, where you have the countywide school districts like Fairfax. It's already built in, the governance issue. But it's very difficult to say Boston is going to somehow merge with the suburbs. I don't think that has happened anywhere that I'm aware of. But the Hartford metropolitan model is a very good model that I think any metropolitan community can do.
Okay. I think we're out of time for questions, and I have to wrap up. But thank you guys so much for listening.